Hey friends, welcome to Flite Tech. I'm Josh. Today we're going to be showing you how to take your FT Tenet, install your tail, your push rods, and the servos for your fuselage. The materials we're going to need is going to be our main body. By now you should have this already configured the way you like it and also taped. You're going to have the tail that you've built. You're going to have the 2 extra push rods, 4 zip ties, and the 2 servos that have been centered and had linkage stoppers installed. For the tools for this project, you're going to need a hot glue gun, a utility blade or a pair of scissors, and a screwdriver. Let's go ahead and get our materials in order and we'll get started. Our first step in the build process is going to be to install our tail. Now it can be the conventional tail, the V-tail, or a tail of your own design. They're all going to install the exact same. The very front of the tail mount is going to be right here. We're going to slide that, line it up with the grooves, and simply press it into place. Now that we have our tail installed, our next step is to install our servos. Before we install this, we're going to put a slight score cut on both sides of the 2 servo flanges because we're not going to need to screw this down in anything, and we're going to crack them off. This can also be done with the edge of a pair of scissors. I like a utility blade just because it does a little bit better job. There's one. And there's 2. Let's go ahead and do the other one real quick. Now that we've removed the flanges of the servos, we're ready to install them into the fuselage. It's going to be very important when we install these in the fuselage that the servo arms are pointing down and the leads are pointing towards the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this in to this back little cavity here. You're going to notice it's quite a friction fit. Can I just push with our thumb? Press it all the way back. Make sure that the black portion of your servo is just pointing out enough and that your linkage stopper isn't pushing against your fuselage. Let's go and do the same process on the other side. Again, we're going to make sure that the servo arm is pointing down and that the servo lead wire is pointing towards the back. A little bit of a rocking motion is all you need. Again, I'm making sure that the linkage stopper and the servo arm are not rubbing against the fuselage. We want to be able to remove this in the future in case you ever decide to build another fuselage or you want to recycle your electronics. To lock these down, all we simply need to do is put a little drop of hot glue between the foam and the servo on both sides. So we have our tail installed and we have our servos installed. What's going to connect the 2 is what we call a push rod. A push rod is going to be able to move backwards and forwards and transmit that motion from the push rod and the servo to the control horn. Now it's really important whenever we put a push rod in here, if the servos push on this side and the controls are resisting through airflow, it's going to bend. We're going to reinforce along this push rod with zip ties to keep that bending from happening. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take our Z-bend, we're going to pop it right down through here and a little bit of a wiggle and a rotation. That's all you need. And you're going to notice that this wire will lay nice and even right across here. We're now going to take a zip tie and we're going to pass it through and get it down as tight as possible, just like that. Going about a ½ inch in, we can take our utility blade or a pair of scissors and cut it to a point. So for the first reinforcement, we're going to go right between the end of the fuselage here and the tail. I'm going to go in roughly 1/4 of an inch, push down into the foam, and press it in. After we made our hole, we can follow up with a little dab of glue, squeeze it right down in that hole, then press our zip tie in place. And I like to push it all the way down so it seats inside. Again, we're going to grab another zip tie, we're going to tighten it all the way down, go down about a ½ of an inch. There we go. We're going to slide it into place. And this time again, I'm going to go half the distance between the last support we put in and the servo arm. It's also really important for this placement that we're going to want to guide our push rod so it lines up with our linkage stopper. So it's right about there, halfway between. Just going to press it right down into place. Once we're happy with that, push some glue in there. Press it down. So you're going to notice now that we have all this connected and supported, as we move this push rod back and forth, our rudder is going to move. We want to neutralize our rudder, which means that basically it's not going to be bent to the left or the right. Get it nice and neutral. Then we're going to move forward about 1/4 of an inch here, making sure that the wire that we cut is not past this area, or else our power pod module is not going to be able to move in and out. So we're going to go about 1/4 inch here, take our side cuts, and now we can simply move our servo arm open. Don't worry, we'll be able to recenter when we hook up our electronics. We'll just pass that right on through. Move that back to vertical, and there we go. All right, everything is installed. We're not gonna screw down the servo yet until we hook it into our receiver or FT Aura board and we power it on. Let's go and do the exact same process now on the other side. We're gonna take our push rod, we're gonna slide it through the control horn hole. Just a very gentle rocking motion is all you need. And then we'll go back to our zip ties. Again, making a nice tight little hole. Kind of about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch away. And we'll place this reinforcement right across from the other one, about 1/4 of an inch in. Little drop of glue right down in the holes, all you need. And the second zip tie is going to go right between the servo arm and the last zip tie we just installed. And the second support is going to go right between the last zip tie we installed and the servo arm. Just like the other side, we're going to make sure that the push rod is lined up with our linkage stopper. We're going to split the difference, press it into place. Making sure our control is nice and neutral, we're going to go about 1/4 of an inch past our linkage stopper and cut off the excess. It's a really good idea to hold on to these extra 2 pieces of push rod because those can be used for our ailerons. And finally, I'm just going to rock this servo just enough to slide it through the barrel. There we go. And just like the other side, we're going to hold off screwing this down until we install that into our FT Aura light board or our receiver. At this point, our tail is installed, our push rods are installed, and the nice thing about this is anytime we want to swap one tail for the other, all we simply need to do is loosen up our 2 linkage stoppers, rock the tail to the side, and then slide it out. To install a new tail, all you simply need to do is swap your push rods out, slide them back through the guides and into your linkage stoppers, and then slide your tail into place. We're now done with our tail installation, our push rod, and our servo installation. We're ready to move on to the next step of our build project. We'll see you there.